Global Women for Wellbeing's Wine and Tea Wednesdays. Really excited to be here with our friends in London. So Chris, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mim. I am so delighted to introduce to you Deanne Johnson. She is a co-host for today. She is the womanologist, and she's a master coach to women in leadership. And I also want to say she's a GW4W family member. So thank you for co-hosting with me today, Deanne. Our guest today is Emma Knight. She is the Director of People and Development at Nest, and that is the National Employment Savings Trust. And our other guest is Leo Nichols. He is Diversity and Inclusion Business Partner at Nest. And I would like to tell everyone listening, we are so pleased at GW4W because they won, or they were awarded, I should say, the Voice for Change Organizational Year Company of the Year. And that is simply because they set a 3-year target to get more people, more women in senior leadership roles. And as of December 2019, 37% of directors and above are women, and 43% of senior management are women. So we say once again, congratulations on all that, for being that voice of change. So this week in the UK is Mental Health Week. And I'm going to first start it off and ask Emma, during this difficult period that we are having, how is Nest helping employees balance work and their personal life?
We've been doing a lot of different things. From the beginning, we were providing reassuring messages to staff, especially those who were suddenly finding themselves juggling working from home and homeschooling. We're fortunate that every member of staff at Nest can work from home and work from home effectively, and we've been doing that since the middle of March. This week for mental health and wellbeing, our internal comms have put together a fantastic program of different activities. That's art and crafts, it's desk side yoga, it's talks. They even sent out a craft box for people as well to their homes. We're also, we launched at the beginning of our lockdown, our mental health first aiders. So we trained 13 people. So we brought forward the launch, and then they've been engaging with all of our staff, particularly people that are struggling if they're at home alone, or if they're struggling with just juggling all of the different life activities. And finally, a core message we've been giving out is it's okay not to be okay. We all have different days where we're more productive than others. So I'm really proud of how we have been supporting our staff through this time.
That's such a powerful message. It's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How is that being received?
Really well, absolutely. We're doing weekly live sessions with our own executive team, and our chief executive Helen did the one last week and was giving out exactly the same messages. And you know, we're getting really positive feedback around the regularity of communication, the strength of the message that, you know, if you've got to take time out to homeschool your children, that's absolutely fine. If you've got, you know, if you're having a day where the deadline is going to be quite hard for you to meet, then speak to your line manager. And I must say, our line managers have really stepped up during this time to support individuals. It's really funny that the visibility of our leadership team has been strengthened by not being in the office. It's phenomenal.
And I just want to point out the importance of this, you know, leadership and doing it specifically for them. And it, as we all know, these initiatives, without that leadership being front and center and visible to the rest of the, you know, the work community, the change doesn't happen. And again, I mean, you guys just work brilliantly from our perspective on so many different levels in terms of how you support your employees. So really thank you for your leadership and being able to share the voice around that. It's really important.
Yeah, talking about your leadership, what are you working on to continue? Because you've done so well. We've heard about the award that we thought you so worthy winners of. But what are you doing to continue that great gender balance, across the board at Nest? And what is Nest? Maybe some people don't even know what Nest is.
So Nest is the workplace pension scheme. So it was set up to auto-enroll people into pension, part of a government initiative. So we've got direct links to the Department for Work and Pensions in the UK.
Yeah.
And over the last few years, we've grown quite substantially, and we've now got 10 million members. And these are people who wouldn't normally have been able to save for retirement. So, at Nest, there is such a strong social purpose for what we do, and that's, brought to the table by everyone who works for Nest. In terms of leadership, we're continuing to do the things we were doing, gender balanced panels. We push for gender balanced shortlists. We'll be running sort of specific training programs, and that will not just be for women in leadership positions, it'll be for everybody. I think at Nest, it's our whole diversity and inclusion agenda and strategy that is a really important thing for us. And it's probably appropriate for me to hand over to Leo to talk a bit more about what we're doing in that area.
Yeah. So I think fundamentally it's about creating a culture where people can bring themselves to work and, air their thoughts and challenge and be, and challenge safely, and also feel that challenge is being acted upon. And when I say challenge, I don't mean about behaviors. I'm talking about, that helpful critique you give each other. It could be someone well above you in terms of the hierarchy. It could be someone below, beneath you in terms of hierarchy, but you're still able to have that colleague conversation and fostering that environment where people can actually say, you know what, that piece of work you did, I would have done it slightly different. And it could be the chief exec you're talking to, and that doesn't really matter. So I think that really helps in terms of the culture. Secondly, I think it's the fact that we have leaders that exhibit the behaviors that we want, essentially. So I think one of the big things for women in leadership is family leave. It's unequal at the moment. It's kind of heavily burdened on women. But actually here at Nest, we really push our shared parental leave offer. So we actually actively tell our senior exec males, who are just about to have a newborn child, it's not a question of, are you going to be taking shared parental leave? It's when are you going to be taking shared parental leave? And that's coming from the CEO. So that kind of sets the tone really for the whole business. There's an expectation that you are kind of taking shared parental leave and doing your bit for your child.
How does it work? Do they split the time? How does that work, the joint parental leave?
So shared parental leave is a government initiative, so it's unfortunately still down to the mother being eligible for a full maternity payment, essentially, or statutory maternity. So long as that's the case, then the mother and father can choose to split that paid parental leave period. So the mother can take 6 months maternity, and then the father can take 6 months of that maternity leave, so to speak, but actually use it for himself. On top of that, they also get the 2 weeks, I think, statutory paternity leave as well for fathers. So it's kind of building the government scheme.
So I'm curious, how have you gotten these senior male executives? Like, clearly you're pushing it and getting it out there, and I'm guessing that you're sharing the stories. So how did you kind of take, what approach did you take? Have you taken with them, and how are you sharing those stories? Because that's such a huge piece of trying to get that balance on the back end from the home front, so that you can have more balance in the workplace.
Yeah,
I think.
Go ahead, Leo.
Oh, you go. I'll just touch something, and then Emma, you can happily join in after. So I think the main thing is actually that attitude of the expectation that you're taking it. So if your CEO is saying you're going to be taking shared parental leave, effectively you're taking shared parental leave, aren't you? But also, let's not forget the statistics and the kind of evidence behind it. Most men feel guilty that they have to work all the time and missing these key moments in their child's development, especially the early years. So actually, all you're doing is giving them the actual opportunity, almost the permission to go and do so. And that's also that active part, a massive benefit as well, as a mother doesn't feel that she has to stay at home and that she has to put her career on pause, and actually you're benefiting two sides of that family. Or in the case of, same-sex relationships, both of them can actually spend equal amount of time with their children. So I think it's that, setting that culture of, you can take it, it's here for you, but we're not going to have it as a passive benefit on the shelf. We're going to actively, push you to take it. And I think that really, really helps.
I've heard some reports that even where it's available, men are really struggling to even put their hand up and say they want to claim it.
Yeah, so I have spoken to people in different organizations about this, and it's a case of they actually have the shared parental leave benefit, but it's a case of they say it, but they don't really, act upon it. So you talk the talk, you don't walk the walk. So it's like we have this offer, but you're really, really busy. You have this priority to deliver in the next 2 months. So do you really want to take shared parental leave? Is the kind of question you get from your line manager. Whilst we don't really have that here in this, I think there's a realization that it's a work-life balance thing. Actually, your family life is just as important as your work life, and actually being able to have your work life, both in terms of experiences, but also your productivity and your ability to focus on your job. And I don't think other businesses necessarily sell that as well.
Yeah.
And what I was going to add on is just listening to both of you talk, you want people to take it. And I personally feel, just with both your backgrounds, I mean, Leo, you were brought up by your mom, and then Emma, you had a child when you were younger. So I think you really use those, those instances and experiences to actually put it forth in your work at Nest and say, look, this is something that we need to change. And I like the word that you said, Leo, was culture. This isn't just going to be something on the shelf. We are going to have you take it and be, the development of your children. It's both of the parents helping out, whatever they are. The children need that to grow up. And I think that's so amazing that you say, look, we're going to be a company that says, take it.
How much has those experiences shaped the way that you're showing up at work right now?
I think for me, if I look back to when my children were little, so my youngest is 15, so I don't have to homeschool him at the moment. I trust him. But if I was having to homeschool my 3 children doing previous roles that I was doing, I would really struggle. I would feel guilty. From the part of not being able to deliver at work and from probably not being able to support my children. I think the modern working world is changing, and I think actually coming out of this pandemic is going to change working environments for the future. I talk to people who work in different organisations, and we've got a scheme in the UK where we're furloughing people, where the government are paying paying salaries, but people aren't working, and people are really starting to struggle, not actually doing anything. So I know from just whole work experience, if this had happened in my life 20 years ago, I would be in a very different place to where I am now. And I think the fact that Nest had already really promoted flexible working in the last couple of years, we've really benefited from it. So yeah.
Have you seen any gender differences? Like when you talk about flex time, are there not better or worse, but are there just differences that you've seen for reasons for people needing flex time, across the gender arc?
Sorry, Emma, go ahead.
There you go.
You sure? Okay. So I think, generally speaking, flexibility is there for both men, women, or our workplace. But I do think there's still a slight correlation not slight, there's still a correlation with women taking flexibility more for parent responsibilities. And I think that's not necessarily a next thing, I think it's a societal thing. So even if we still have that message of, men and women should be taking flexibility and both should equally take, time off for care and responsibilities, I think society it's still an expectation that is on women, and that's a bigger influence, unfortunately, than employers. And that's something that I think together as an industry, maybe we can start to work on.
And another issue that I think really needs to be worked on across the board is the whole issue around BAME representation at senior leadership. So what's happening at Nest with BAME representation in your senior leadership team?
Emma, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to hand over to Leah on this. So that's an area that we haven't focused on as much as we want to. So in the coming year, that's our next real focus.
But to add from what Emma said, so we haven't really focused on it, but actually we've been quite fortunate to have a good representation regardless, and I think that's down to the culture here at Nest again. So 20% of our senior leadership are BAME. 26% of our workforce are BAME, so almost parity there. But actually, having spoken to some of those BAME leaders, it's actually down to Nest as an employer and how they're able to bring themselves to work. They're able to talk about their culture, their different family roles or family styles or lifestyles. But what's quite important is that we have a really good learning and development offer for everybody. And I know from the evidence, development, especially for BAME people or BAME people, get us in the leadership is also an issue. And it could be down to confidence or it could be down to perceived prejudice. But I don't think that's an issue in Nest because we try and foster, conversations about development. We really try and get to the root of people's career aspirations and help them on that journey. But equally, we give people the ability to, grow in confidence and try different things and work in different areas.
It's interesting how with the cult, when you focus on building an inclusive culture, then it kind of works across the board. It works across all diversity, and it stimulates diversity just by default if you start to focus on inclusivity.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And I'm curious because I know that your CFO shared that everybody had gone through bias testing. And so and it was wonderful that he had shared that he was a little shocked to find out that he had some gender bias and has 2 daughters. But it was just really wonderful to hear him share about what was uncovered for him. So I'm just curious because both of you must have gone through the training. Was there anything that either one of you found out or reinforced for yourselves?
So one of the things that really took me back, but I probably because I actively think about it, was that kind of correlation between male career and female family. So I had a moderate correlation towards that, and I was kind of outraged myself actually. I was like, here I am, the D&I business partner. But then I think about, most of these things are linked to your childhood actually, and I think about my childhood and how, my mum, single mother, really struggled with her career, balancing that family life, and I know family was still her priority. So I can see that and see where that prejudice kind of or bias lies. I mean, it wasn't nice, but it still exists. And I think it's about confronting that, actually what we can do to kind of beat that unconscious bias.
Yeah. That's really powerful. The time is really ticking away, but one of the things that's really raising up for me as we talk, I realize that because you're so focused on addressing the balance and because you're so focused on inclusivity, it's having a great effect, award-winning effects. But what are the challenges? What are the challenges to continuing this work, to going forward, to improving and to keep going with making things better across the arcs?
I think the challenge is everybody has got a very different view, and some views are a lot stronger than others, and it's how you strike that balance. So I think Leo sort of mentioned earlier, we've had a great gender focus for female leaders, but we do get our male leaders saying, well, don't forget us. So there's that, and keeping everybody on board with the journey. I think we've done a great job internally at Nest, but Nest is growing as an organisation within the financial services sector, and it's how we can use our opportunity to influence other organisations. We're also based in Canary Wharf in London, which is part of Tower Hamlets, which is the most sort of deprived area in London. And so there's a big feeling from us around socio-economic diversity and inclusivity, and how we can potentially focus programs for apprenticeships and things like that for people where we are targeting people from sort of backgrounds where they wouldn't necessarily normally get that opportunity to work in a financial services environment. So that's, we want to be the best. We want to make some changes and influence, but also you can't be a lone voice in it.
Yeah, just to echo Emma on that, I think actually, unless we have it pretty good, but it's our sector, and not necessarily our sector as well, the recruitment consultants as well in the sector and recruitment agencies, they need some confidence in as well. I hear some horror stories of, people who are approached, for example, for a role and then maternity leave. And as soon as they found out, the recruitment consultant finds out the maternity leave, kind of roll back the offer or kind of say, you know what, maybe you need to readjust your priorities. And I think there's that attitude problem that we need to work on. And I think, the organizations these recruitment consultants are working for ultimately can push them to change their attitude. Actually, we have quite a powerful position in that sense.
Yeah, and I would just add, I mean, being a global organization, that particular issue is true around the world. And in fact, you're seeing, there's been some really interesting studies, particularly in like Japan, South Korea, where younger professional women are flat out saying, I'm not getting married and I'm not having children. And that's an active choice because our culture, which gets back to that piece that, you were sharing, you're absolutely right. Like you can build the best possible culture in your organization, but we still have that outside the walls piece that, frankly, has been around for millennials. We talk about, gender and diversity and some of these things, but it's wonderful that you guys are so open about your journey and being willing to share where you're going and actively measuring it. I think the fact that you guys actively measure, and so I know that you have a female CEO, and Richard, we got to meet your CFO, and they're just such a wonderful leadership team. How is having that balance at the very top influenced some of the changes that you've made?
I think it's wonderful having a CEO that's so passionate about the people at Nest. Our top leadership team, being totally honest, Helen is the only female on that first group, but she has been pretty influential in wanting to develop women through the organisation, providing opportunities for coaching, specific development, which I think is fantastic. I think we do get challenges as to the size of our executive team and the fact that there is only one female leader, but actually the passion comes from all of them. So as you say, you met Richard, he's very passionate about diversity and inclusion, as are all other members of our executive team. And I think working with a group like that really helps people like me and Leo when we're trying to come to the table with what they probably would have termed previously fluffy initiatives of things that we want to do for our staff. It opens up a really healthy debate, but actually I think does make our lives slightly easier when we've got that level of buy-in.
Yeah.
All the way around, Nest is just leading the way and pioneering. I mean, just as you were talking, I was thinking about even just the bread and butter of your work, helping people who wouldn't usually be set for retirement, people that wouldn't be prepared for retirement. That's a huge underestimated group, I think, and so even that work is all kind of feeding into this people passion that you have there at Nest, and this desire to level the playing field for people wherever they are in their life and in their work. It's just really amazing. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I think the fact that you use the word passion around so much of this, which having worked in the financial world earlier in my career, not in the way that Nest uses it, in the way I've heard both of you talk about this now that, we've met and been together multiple times now, it's really inspiring. And I think it is, it shows that there is another way to do this, even in an industry that tends to lag behind when it comes to gender and diversity, and doing those things. I did want to ask, because we always ask like personal questions too. So the one thing, just first, so happy that you are both safe and healthy and doing well. But is there something that has been a surprisingly good benefit out of some of the craziness that's happened in this pandemic for both of you?
Yeah, I think I'm better at relaxing of an evening and switching off. I'm loving not actually getting a tube into work, and really enjoying spending more time at home with my family. So, my kids are all grown up, but it's nice just to have more time at home.
Awesome. With me, it's my profound ability to impulse buy. I literally, it's like every other day I've got something else being delivered. I think Amazon are going to make me their chief shareholder shortly, because I'm literally, I'm just doing loads of DIY around the house. So I'm buying stuff, just installed a Nest thermostat. So yeah, it's just honestly.
Your place looks fabulous now, right?
Yeah, it's all like you clap your hands now, all the lights come on and the heating comes on. It's fantastic. Yeah, I need to rein it back.
Oh dear.
I think that's something that's going on across the UK, because my husband's doing it all the time.
We're fresh out of time, and we could go on and on talking about the brilliance of Nest and the passion of the two of you. But unfortunately, we need to wrap it up now. But Chris, over to you.
Thank you so much, Emma and Leo, for coming on board with us today and sharing your incredible journey. We invite everyone to raise a glass to good health and a more sustainable and inclusive future.
Yes.
And next week, again, please join us for our next Wine and Tea Wednesday. We'll be joined by Oana. She is from Fabric. She's the Chief Marketing Officer, and we're going to be talking about workspaces and well-being. And what's it going to be like? What do they have to do in their spaces to get people back into work and make it healthy, and mental well-being and the anxieties that people have about going back into work? We're going to be exploring some of those topics with her. So please do join us. If you haven't done already, please download our white paper on gw4w.org. And if you need any support during this time, please reach out to us. And if you have a topic that you would like to hear about, please send that in as well. And always remember,
great minds sit together.
See you next time, next week. Tune in.
Bye-bye.
Bye.